Welcome to Retro Groove. Enjoy your voyage. Retro Groove. Retro Groove. Retro Groove.
Howdy and welcome to Retro Groove. I'm Adam C.
And I'm Liam D.
And this is a podcast where we talk about music that stands the test of time, the albums and artists that have shaped and reshaped the sonic landscape, as well as covering new music from those artists. Today, we have an episode that I'm super excited about. We just, a few days ago, got the most recent James Bond movie, the last Daniel Craig Bond movie, which I'm a little sad about because I actually love Daniel Craig as James Bond.
Same.
And we're going to talk about the Bond theme songs throughout the years. And I have just a special place in my heart for Bond movies across the board, from the 60s all the way till recent. They're just really a part of my upbringing, and I'm just so excited to dive into all of these. A lot of them are just really, really incredible songs, and we're gonna do this. And man, I've been listening to them all weekend, and I'm ready. How are you feeling, Liam?
I'm good. Yeah, I grew up with Bond. My mom just had them on, which, like, I was probably way too young to have those things on in the house, but
yeah,
I
some
did.
of them, yeah.
She loves Sean Connery and was not.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, she was not quiet about that.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm excited. She would sing them around the house and stuff. So I've got a special place in my heart for it too.
My first introduction to Sean Connery was in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. That was my first. That's my first memory of Sean Connery as a kid, and so, you know, just the era that we grew up in. I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Yeah, he was. You know, he was older, and I didn't realize that he was basically the original James Bond, or not even basically. He was the original James Bond. Really. Until far later in my, cinematic research, you know what I mean? So it's funny, just depending on when you were born and, what was the popular movies and media in your house growing up, to how you digest these things and how what your perception of them is as time goes on. So we're going to get into all that. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I think we're just chomping at the bit to dive into a lot of this 007 discussion.
Yeah, but first we got to talk about how I was in Austin and we got to hang out and have a beer together and actually physically meet instead of doing this through headphones and microphones.
Yes, so
it was great.
Really, really great. It was an awesome time. Liam came on down to Austin for ACL Fest, Austin City Limits Music Festival, and we made it happen. Dan of Retrologic fame, my brother, as most of y'all know, and myself drove on down, not too far from us. We're about 30 minutes away or so from the heart of downtown Austin, and we met up and finally got to shoot the breeze face to face. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was great. I had a great time. It's a great city, I have to say. And ACL Fest was awesome. It was great performers. I mean, St. Vincent was fantastic. Dude, Miley Cyrus, I haven't been in a situation where I've seen Miley Cyrus perform live. At least probably not in a long time. And she was like channeling Debbie Harry, Joan Jett, like that's her current thing, which there's a part of me where I'm like, is it a shtick or whatever? But she owns it enough and loves it enough where I'm like, I think I'm here for it. She delivers, like her stage presence is outstanding.
I have very slowly been warming up to Miley Cyrus as a performer, honestly.
She embraces her history too. Like she'll talk about and play some songs from the early days. It's not like she's shunned her past at all.
Right.
It's just like she keeps growing as an artist and embraces that. And another artist that has grown that I was shocked because I saw her at ACL in 2019 was Billie Eilish.
Oh,
and
nice.
Billie Eilish was great in 2019, but it was like she was a character and she was figuring it out, and she is very carefully curating her image and her sound,
which is fine.
It's totally fine. But watching her this time, and I think part of it is when you go to see live music currently, the people on the stage are almost as excited as the people off the stage to be in that environment. Yeah, exactly. And she was so engaging and so charismatic, and I was floored because, again, like, I like her music. It's good. I don't turn it off, but I don't put it on.
Right.
She like I see why she is so massive, and I see why she is singing the new James Bond song. Yeah. I totally get it.
Which is incredible, by the way, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, so after the night after I saw you guys on, I think it was Saturday night, right?
Yeah, it was Saturday night. Mm-hmm.
So Sunday night's the end of the festival. We've got barbecue, and a bunch of us are walking back, and you guys have scooters everywhere.
Yes.
There are scooters everywhere. You can rent them like an Uber if you've never been to Austin. I think some other cities have it too, but there are scooters everywhere. And we saw some incidents throughout of people being crazy with their scooters, or scooters in the river, scooters in a tree.
Yeah, they're a plague upon our city, yes.
But this was the most bananas thing that I think I've seen in a long time. It was terrifying. So a bunch of us get to an intersection. We're just south of the river, walking up Congress. Main intersection, 4 lanes of traffic plus the turn lane.
Right.
We're all waiting there. The lights changed. A kid, and I say a kid who's probably in his 20s, goes flying by us. Like, just flying by us right into cross oncoming traffic.
Oh, no.
And, like, barely misses getting hit by this like white cab thing that I didn't know what it was, and we all start screaming. The moment he zips by us, we're all screaming like, stop, what are you doing? I don't know if he had earphones on or he was on something, whatever. Barely, and we all like breathe this sigh of relief as he like, oh, you hear us all go, oh, and then another car that we didn't see on the far side of the cab is there, like a black car.
Oh, God.
And hits the kid. The kid goes up on the hood, into the windshield, breaks the windshield, barrel rolls onto the roof, and falls off the car, right? So we're all screaming. There's like seven of us. We're all screaming. There's 2 people across the street right by the accident. They're screaming. I call 911. I get to the dispatcher for the ambulance. We're waiting for the light to change. And as that's happening, the kid gets up. And he looks around. He's obviously dazed. And the dispatcher is like, do you need an ambulance? And I was like, yes, I'm at the corner of Congress and whatever. And this man was just struck on a scooter. And she's like, is he conscious? And I was like, yes, he's running away. And she's like, well, sir, I can't send an ambulance if the patient's not there. Like, he has to want medical attention. And I'm like, he just got hit by a car and he's running towards the bridge. And I guess not. This is exactly what I said. I guess not. I guess have a good night.
Sorry for wasting your time.
So that's basically, I was like, sorry, have a good night. I guess I don't need anything.
Oh my
And so
God.
we got across the street. Somebody else had called the police for the driver. The driver's all freaked out, and the scooter's there. And I think you have to rent the scooter with a credit card or something, right? So
right, yeah.
They're going to figure out who this guy is.
Yeah.
But like, in order to get back to our hotels, we had to cross the bridge in the direction that he went anyway. And so we all walk at a fairly brisk pace, assuming that I'm going to be making another 911 call. And I never see the kid. And I don't know where he went,
just
dude.
Took off.
It was so crazy. And I'm trying to think, we're all talking about like why this happened and trying to figure out like, is it because he was on something and he didn't want to get a DUI? I don't know
you can.
how that works on scooters. On scooters, you can?
You can get a DUI on a scooter. So that's
be what
probably the most likely scenario. Yeah.
Man.
Probably drunk.
But like, he must have cracked a rib, something. I mean,
he's going to feel it, or he's probably feeling it now. He probably felt it the next morning.
It's so crazy. I've just never seen somebody get hit by a car, and I can just picture his legs just kind of flipping up in the air as he went over and off the side of the car.
Oh,
it was the craziest way to end a lovely trip to Austin. But I'm like, so now I'm like, I am paying attention to New York City law. Like, we have these city bikes, but they're nothing like that. And I'm like, if anybody's trying to bring scooters into this town, like, no way. Get the scooters out. Are they trying to get them out of Austin? Is that like a thing, or do people love them? Do you know anything about it?
The locals hate them for the most part. You know what I mean? Because they're an eyesore and they're everywhere. And the people that do use them feel like none of the rules of the road apply to them. So they're annoying at best.
Yeah.
But they're motorized. So yes, you're operating a motor vehicle when you use one.
Yeah.
So
I think he had earbuds in too, man. Like there was a
that doesn't help.
I'm trying to remember it as he flashed by, and I have these over ear things that I do wear when I'm riding my bike, but it leaves my ear exposed so that I can hear stuff, and even that I'm like, maybe it's not the best idea.
No.
But yeah, it's so crazy.
Well, other than that, any other any other positive memories from ACL?
So
what were some good experiences?
I got to see Modest Mouse at Stubbs. It's been a while since I went to Stubbs. They were great, and I sent you guys a picture. I wound up randomly standing next to Britt Daniel from Spoon, and it was like, I was like, this is a very tall man next to me, and I'm in Austin. Is it possibly? Yeah, that's him. Cool. That's him. Yeah. So that was cool. And did a lot of walking. It's a good walking town. And so I was listening to a lot of music. And for some reason, I just went on a Strokes deep dive. Somebody had tweeted something at some point, and I think it was predicated by a clickbaity Pitchfork article where they said, if we could re-review these 25 albums, here's what we would do, which
I've seen that.
Don't love the premise of it. Right. But I clicked on it, so I'm part of the problem. And they had posted that they gave the first Strokes album a 9.2 and the second Strokes album an 8 point something. And the guy was like, we should have given it a 9.3 because it's just as good, if not a little bit better than the first album. And I was like, I do think I like the second album better. I went back, I listened to the first three because the others are fine. Then the newest album's actually really good.
Yeah.
I think the second one is definitely my favorite. I think that the third Strokes album has held up better than the first. The first one was groundbreaking. You'll never take that away from it. And it's got great vibes to it and great songs. But like, once they got to the third album and they really needed to sculpt their sound, I think they had dialed it in to a point, again, where I like it, where it is a little more produced. And there's just great moments on the third album that I just don't see. That the first album's consistent, but it's like, for me, it's consistently more a nostalgia play than an active album that I want to go listen to. Whereas when the third one's on, it's on. So I've been having a Strokes moment. I don't know. Are you a Strokes fan at all?
Oh, definitely. And it probably comes down to just timing. The first album came out in 2001. That was just barely, not even a full year after I had kind of started college and was working at Newbury Comics. And I remember it coming out. And there was some hubbub around it because it was right around 9/11, and they had to nix the New York City Cops song, or they chose to nix it because of 9/11.
Oh man.
and no, I know what you're talking about. That third album is really, really good. It's really solid. I actually had to check I had to Google it really quick to make sure it was the one I was thinking of, and it's First Impressions of Earth, right?
Of Earth, yeah.
So there's
Juicebox and Heart in a Cage. Yeah, there's
amazing songs, right? And they just kind
bangers
of
on there.
expounded on that original formula.
Yeah.
Because as classic as that first album is, it even today, as much as I love it and I will listen to it from time to time, and it's one of my favorite albums from that era, it feels a little bit claustrophobic going back and listening to it.
Yes.
After the rest of the Strokes albums have already come out.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, you could see what they were able to do and what they were able to build, and it was a paradigm shift, and it was a very important album, and it needs to exist. But I think at my age where I'm at with other music, I am more interested and even challenged by the third album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can't argue with that at all. What else?
And then the last thing is I just randomly, and we're going to talk about Tina Turner later. I don't know if you've ever had this thing where, sometimes I work better if I'm on my laptop with something on TV, and I'll throw on American Pickers or whatever it is,
something benign
schlock from History Channel. But I threw on the TV, and they were doing, I think it was live from Barcelona, Tina Turner live from Barcelona, like a week ago. And I was like, you know what? I know some Tina Turner songs. I'm familiar enough with her, but I don't think I've ever seen live performance of her. She seems like somebody who is known for her stage presence and her performance. And I had to turn it off after a while because I was too distracted. Yeah, like it wasn't the passive experience. Like I would get into an email or something and I'd be like, man, she's killing it. Jeez, yeah. But definitely, I think it was on Axis or something. So if you come across the live from Barcelona, I mean, it was just her in top form, obviously, and definitely makes me want to do a deeper dive into some Tina Turner.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I can't do anything music related if it's, you know what I mean? I can't do music stuff passively. It doesn't work for my brain. I have to put on some, like a cooking show or something like that I kind of care less about. But what
about you?
I have been listening to quite a bit of different stuff here. The new Explosions in the Sky album, which is the soundtrack to the PBS Big Bend nature documentary.
What is that?
And it's well, so Big Bend is one of it's the most recent PBS nature documentary about, Big Bend, as the title implies. Mm-hmm. And so Explosions in the Sky did the soundtrack, and it's still Explosions in the Sky, but it's just so calm and soothing. It doesn't have the grandiose emotional highs that the studio albums have, or the albums where they're just, this is just for us. We're not trying to put this as a soundtrack to something.
Right.
And obviously it's for a nature documentary, so it's more subdued and just kind of calm, and it works really, really well. I put it on in the car, and it just makes me feel good. It's really, really, really slick and just kind of natural sounding in a weird way. I think first time I've heard an acoustic guitar on an Explosions in the Sky album. So really, really nice. I have considered pulling the trigger on ordering the special edition vinyl. Is I'm trying to remember what it's called. I'm going to look it up here, but they did this kind of multicolor swirl that looks like a rock formation kind of thing. So desert rock color LP. It's like a kind of yellowish and brownish kind of swirled together, so it kind of looks like the terrain. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
Now I haven't bought a whole lot because I kind of splurged on the Radiohead Kid A Amnesia thing.
You did buy it.
Well, I pre-ordered it, and
Yeah.
it's not coming out until next month, I think, but I actually found a website that still had the limited edition red vinyl version in stock.
Oh.
Which looks to
sketchy
be
website or no?
No, it's a legit website, but it's
Okay.
it's a German website. So I don't know. It went through, and I'm kind of waiting to see, because I really couldn't spend the $120 on like the super special edition with the art book and all that, because I'm not gonna I'm gonna look at the art book maybe one time and put it away and never look at it again. But the an Amoeba had a really small quantity of the limited edition red vinyl to pre-order, and they were gone almost instantly. Right. And somebody on the Reddit group that I'm a part of tipped me off to it, and I ordered it instantly, and no regrets. We're going to see what happens. Yeah. And I ordered it with my credit card, so in case it's something bogus, I can, just dispute it.
Good move.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. The jury's still out on whether it's actually going to happen. But I figure, the regular edition is probably not going to be difficult to find once it actually comes out. So
yeah,
or hopefully not. At least easier to find than any of the other limited edition ones. Yeah. So because of that, although I did buy, a friend of mine is in a band called Math, the band, and they had a sale recently on their Bandcamp. So I bought one of their earlier albums that I hadn't had the chance to pick up. But other than that, I've been listening to the new Yes album.
Oh, nice.
I didn't. It was a surprise to me. I was just kind of on their Apple Music page because I'll throw on Fragile or Relayer from time to time, whether on vinyl. I have both of those or in the car, and I was like, "What is this? I've never seen this album cover before." And it said 2021, and it had just come out. I was like, "What? There's a new Yes," and of course, it's still Yes. It's still great. It doesn't quite hold up to Fragile or Relayer, but it's still good. It's definitely still great driving music, and puts you in that kind of otherworldly, semi-psychedelic state of mind.
Yeah.
And then I've also been listening to an Austin band called A Giant Dog. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I don't think so.
So A Giant Dog was actually a band that was semi-discovered by Britt Daniel. And they're kind of a garage drunk rock band, for lack of a better term. Just really kind of just irreverent and a little raunchy with their content. And they just play just kind of balls to the walls bar rock and roll. And it's really, really fun. And it's funny that the kind of two of the founding members went on to found the band Sweet Spirit, which is, I think, maybe a little bit more well-known and has actually done work and recorded songs with Britt Daniel, including a cover of a Spoon song. So, they're kind of probably more of a local phenomenon here, but every once in a while I'll get the urge to just kind of play that as loud as possible. I have one of their albums on vinyl, and some of their earlier albums are a little bit more difficult to find, so I've got those on my wish list. And that's basically.
Well, you're in the heart of it. I mean, if it exists, it's probably somewhere in Austin there. So.
Yeah, I've not seen it in the wild. I keep checking Discogs, and I know that's maybe cheating a little bit, but I just want to own it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I almost don't care. You know what I mean? Whether I'd like for it to be at a local shop, but that seems to be a lot more difficult, especially these days.
Yeah.
So
Back on that Yes thing, though. So this is something for a future podcast, but I definitely had conversations with some folks lately. Like the question, just like the kind of sitting at a restaurant table question that gets thrown around of, is there a band or an artist that you love that you maybe haven't seen, is normally the premise, that you wouldn't want to see at this point? For me, I don't think I'd want to see REM. I love REM.
Yeah,
I got into them late, and I'm like, I don't think it would be the same. Like, it wouldn't be the same energy that I love from watching old performances and listening to their records. And it just kills me. And so, like, what you were saying about Yes kind of popped that back into my brain, where I'm like, I'm always excited for new music. I love when an artist has something they want to express, especially if it's an artist that I love. I want them to take me on a journey, and maybe it resonates and maybe it doesn't, and that's okay. But there's sometimes where I'm like, I don't know if I want the last taste in my mouth from a live show to be 65-year-old Michael Stipe, know, or Morrissey. Like, I don't know if I could go see the Smiths. Like, that would be, Johnny Marr's a badass, but I just don't know. Yeah. So I just put it in your head, just for a future episode, we should use that as a conversation point. 'Cause I think that my parents went to go see Aerosmith, and they came back and they were like, it was fine. I don't know.
Recently?
Like, yeah. And I saw, pre-pandemic, obviously, but I saw the Beach Boys a few years back, and it was like John Stamos on drums, and they had to walk Brian Wilson out, and I'm like,
it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. So
John Anderson is 76.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's a lot of energy in that band. It can, depending on the song, it's a lot of energy. So, I don't know.
Well, the only thing I can use as kind of a reference point with Yes is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction performance, a roundabout that they did that I think I posted it on the Discord recently. Mm-hmm. And they absolutely, obviously, this was post Chris Squire passing, and they had Geddy Lee on bass, which is like, there's not a more fitting bass player to fill his shoes for the night.
Yeah.
But they kind of killed it. So,
all right.
His voice has not lost any of its power. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I can definitely, I know the phenomenon that you're talking about. I think when it comes to Yes, I would at least take the chance. I would go and see them.
Have you seen them before?
No, but
see, there it is. Oh man.
Yeah. That's, I'm so late to the Yes train. I only got into them. Obviously, I knew and enjoyed the hits, I knew Roundabout, but only kind of within the past couple years have I really dug deep into their discography. Mm-hmm. So I'm a really, really late blooming Yes fan.
All right.
But yeah, just based on that video from only a few years ago, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, I would definitely see Yes for sure.
All right.
But that's me. I don't know.
I think we've got a community question maybe we should pop into next. Texas Trey sent in a little something here. So his question was, does anybody still buy new CDs, something that's not from a band at a show? And then if you don't, when and why did you stop? And he says, he probably buys one or two a year new, mainly from used bins, but streaming services like Spotify is the way that he listens to music. He probably stopped around 2017, kind of transitioned from paying for CDs to paying for Spotify. Mm-hmm. And now he's got a car. He says his wife's car doesn't even have a CD player. But I guess there's some kind of mounted DVD player where he can kind of rig it a little bit if he wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was asking also, how do we listen to the music in a car? Do we stream it, radio, satellite, CD, whatever it is, or not anything, or podcasts? Sit in silence like a psychopath. I don't know.
Who can sit in silence?
Yeah.
That's some serial killer stuff.
What about, so I mean, what's your take here? Have you bought a CD in recent memory?
No, it's been a long time. There was a certain point where, and it really did start around when, Spotify and Apple Music started to really become a viable option. Once I could start listening to streaming music at work, it was like the CD, like what's the point in buying a CD? Because I know on good equipment, you could probably tell the difference, but if I'm just listening at work, I'm not going to notice a difference in sound quality between a CD and streaming.
Right.
Right. And that's me, you know what I mean? And this is coming from the guy that'll tell you that vinyl sounds the best no matter what.
Right.
So, which is probably objectively wrong, but it's just I'm one of those analog purists that is going to dig my heels in no matter what.
Right.
But yeah, I had a fairly large CD collection, particularly, in the late 90s, early aughts. And when I moved from the Northeast, from Boston area,
that's when it always
to
happens.
Texas, it didn't make sense. You know what I mean? So it didn't make it. And
where'd they go?
Most of them, I sold most of them. And it never, I started to collect again once I got to Texas, but it never made it larger than maybe 20 or 25 CDs at a time.
Yeah.
And digital was coming up, and, and, similarly to, what Trey was talking about, my car doesn't have a CD player, and it hooks up to my phone, and it doesn't, I don't have a working CD player. I found one at a Goodwill, and I picked it up, and I got it home, and it was non-functional. So I literally, and none of my, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 4 laptops in this house, and none of them have a disk drive.
Right. They're gone.
No, it's just not a thing anymore. And I do have a Blu-ray player somewhere in the garage, I think, that might play it, but I certainly don't have anything that uses physical media hooked up to my TV anymore. So I wouldn't have a way to play a CD if I did buy one. Yeah. So it's kind of a slow process, but as streaming got easier and less expensive, and you don't have to buy an iPod anymore, it's on your phone that everybody has.
Man, I love my iPods. I loved them so much though.
They were cool. I never had a dedicated iPod. I never had an MP3 player. It didn't, I was still kind of
Discman to phone, that you just went straight from like.
Pretty much. I would listen to CDs in the car. I didn't have a Discman after probably 2002 or so. Okay. But most of my listening was at home or in the car. So
it was CDs in a stereo or CDs in your car?
Yep, exactly. Wow. So I somehow skipped the whole MP3 player thing. I never did that.
Man, I remember wanting a Zune so bad, like the Microsoft one. I thought they looked really cool, but then I was like, it's never going to be compatible with iTunes, and so I just never got one. And I definitely bought the U2 iPod because it was black and red, and everybody else's was white or black, and I'm like, I don't care about you. U2's fine, but like, I really want a black,
it was the
black
color.
and red.
Yeah, exactly.
I want a black and red iPod. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Zune. I was working I was actually a store manager at GameStop when the Zune launched.
Oh wow!
And
you sold them?
Yeah, we took pre-orders for them. I'm trying to remember. I don't think at least my store didn't just have a stock of them, but we took pre-orders, I believe, and they were kind of pushing it, and I was like, I kind of want one. Because there were some things about them that were better. Or at least an improvement upon what the iPod. You could like share songs with your friends. I think
something like
even
that.
temporarily or something. There were some cool features that it had, and that was the closest I got. As I really did consider a Zune, believe it or not. The transition to digital for me was more like, I still had CDs. I would listen to them in the car. I would listen to them at home, and then slowly it was, and honestly, what may have been the catalyst was when In Rainbows came out, and I downloaded the MP3s, and I purchased it and downloaded the MP3s, and I was like, this sounds just as good as a CD to me.
Wow.
So like, what, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for, I don't think I ever purchased a CD after that. I think that was the moment where I was like, all right, yeah, physical media is probably on its way out.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I definitely do still buy CDs, not as often. And it's also partly because they're just harder to come by. You can just see the scarcity, the market's not there. It's definitely dying out. And the CDs that they are making are the ones that they're selling. It's Kelly Clarkson albums at Target.
Yeah.
Nothing against Kelly Clarkson, but the albums that I buy on CD are the ones that I want to listen to in the car. So I don't have a laptop that has a CD drive, but I do have a USB drive that I can plug into any of my laptops if I do need a CD drive.
There you go.
I have that mainly because while I do have an on-demand streaming platform that I use, I also have a local cloud, a WD My Cloud thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I store all my photos there, my videos, things like that, and all of my music, all of my ripped music, all of the years has just rolled from hard drive to hard drive onto this thing. And look, it is few and far between when you run into the situation. Most situations you come across, you can get 90-something% of the music that you want to hear on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, whatever. But you run into these instances where these random albums got lost in a licensing mess, and you just can't listen to them unless they're on radio play or whatever it is. And it bugs me, it's like, it definitely irks me a little bit. I was having this with the Reggie and the Full Effect album. I don't think, and I could be misremembering it, this was a couple weeks ago, but I went on there to listen to that first Reggie and the Full Effect album, and you can't. And I'm like, I'm glad I still have the CD, or else I don't know how I'm going to listen to this. There is something that feels, in one way, very permanent about a DSP, about a Spotify or whatever.
Right.
But there's also something very fleeting for me. We just talked about the iPod generation and how it felt. It was such a paradigm shift and such a moment, but we're looking at it like it happened and it went in a matter of 2 or 3 years, when really it probably lasted a decade at least. People had iPods. I don't know if this is the model that stays forever. I do agree with some of the perspective of what Spotify did. They democratized music. I think that artists should have gotten a better share in the democratic process. But I will say that there is something very gatekeepy about the way that the record industry was structured to begin with. And if I went to the wall to buy an album and I was a kid and I was 12 years old, I had $20 if I was lucky, and maybe I was walking out with 2 CDs, but probably just one.
Right.
And that meant that I was getting hopefully a couple songs on that soundtrack or that album that I was excited about, but it meant that it was just going to one artist, and I was buying a bunch of stuff that I didn't necessarily want, and it was probably overpriced. So,
Right.
So there was something very prohibitive about the model that you and I loved back then, where you couldn't engage with art in a free way like you can now.
Right.
But again, there is that trade-off. So I try to find, just like I try to do with other stuff, and I'll get off my soapbox, but like try to just diversify it a little bit. Like I use my streaming platform. I'll buy my vinyl records. I'll go buy merch, and I'll buy CDs sometimes because I got a nice local guy who still sells CDs. Some of them are used, some of them are new.
Nice.
But yeah, so to answer Trey's question, though, it's funny that he brings up the car specifically because just like you were saying how vinyl you think is the best sounding thing, and I probably agree with that. In the house, there's nothing that sounds better to me. I've got a nice kind of stereo system in the house that I can throw stuff up on an app and hear stuff, but I still love putting on a record. It just doesn't sound like anything else.
Exactly.
But for me, I'll have my phone Bluetoothed into my car stereo and I'll listen to something and it'll sound good. And then I'll put on a CD next, and I think it's whatever the compression is, whether it's an MP3 or an AIFF or whatever that you're getting from a streaming platform, as opposed to the WAV files that are on the CD. Mm-hmm. It just sounds bigger. It just sounds fuller to me. There is something there where you're getting a straight shot of that fully uncompressed song file.
Uncompressed, yeah.
And for the right albums, that's all that I want, you know? Like, again, I was on a Strokes kick. I was walking around listening to them on a streaming service. But when I got home, I threw Room on Fire in the car, and I was like, man, I love this album. Like, it is so good, and I'm blasting it, and it's great. So Trey, I still buy some CDs from time to time. It's rare. It's also rare that they put them out. I've gone to the record store to buy an album that I'm excited about. I went to buy Tyler's album when it came out, and I checked in for like a month or two after, and I don't think they ever put it out on CD.
Oh,
like
wow.
it's just the way it is, or if they did, it's not out yet, or it hasn't been out recently. So
yeah. It's really interesting
just the way it
how
is.
a lot of times now they're putting it out on vinyl, but not on CD.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I never thought that would end up being the case. And even oftentimes now, there are still new releases where they're putting out cassettes. Like the cassette tape has come back. And that is what's so weird to me.
That seems like such an odd retro play for... I don't know why.
I don't understand it. Like I have a tape player and it doesn't sound great. Like you know what I mean?
It's a pain in the butt. You have to rewind it. You have to scroll along to find the song. It's not like a vinyl where you can see where you want to put the needle down or push a button on a CD.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know.
And then just to close out, to answer the second question, I'm 99% of the time, if I'm in the car, I'm on Apple Music. If I'm not listening to Retrologic or Retro Groove, of course. So
love a podcast, yeah.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of other podcasts that I am into anymore. But I, once in a while, every maybe 6 months or so, someone will bring something to my attention. Then I'll binge the whole everything that they've got. But yeah, most of the time it's going to be streaming through my phone. All right. Well, we've got some news to get through. I know we've gone a little bit long, but it's okay.
We'll hit a couple things real quick.
Yeah. On theme with our feature today, the news came out actually on Friday, the day that the movie finally released after being delayed, however many times. Billie Eilish, her track "No Time to Die" from the movie of the same name has gone platinum already. I'm sure it helped that, it came out so far long before the movie came out. It's been a long time, at least 6 months, if not more. But you're right. It could have been as much as a year. I'm just not even, time doesn't exist in the same way that it did pre-COVID in my brain. Yeah. So it could have been a year. But it's gone platinum already. And, I'm sure they were kind of saving the announcement for the day the movie came out, but neither here nor there. That's a huge accomplishment. And it's a fantastic song. It's a great already song. One of my favorite Bond themes.
Comparatively, you look at Skyfall, which obviously another iconic moment, like number one artist in the world recording a Bond song so tellingly, just perfect, on brand. And I think that came out just 3 or 4 weeks before the movie did. Yeah. So this one's weird. I mean, obviously COVID affected everything, but this one is a weird situation where, like, we got the reveal of the song and then we didn't get the fulfillment of it.
You didn't have time. Yeah. It's crazy how long it got delayed, it's but weird. It makes sense. Bond, it's they want it to be a huge thing, and they didn't want it to be mitigated by the pandemic. So, was it the right call? Who knows? Maybe. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe it was. And then, so with the release of Love for Sale, Tony Bennett, who, I don't know if you grew up with any Tony Bennett. Mm-hmm. My dad had Tony Bennett on all the time. I knew all of the Tony Bennett hits because my dad played it constantly. With Love for Sale, his newest album with Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett has broken the world record, becoming the oldest person to release an album of new material. He turned 95 in August and celebrated his birthday performing with Lady Gaga at Radio City Music Hall. 95 years old. I mean, and sadly he is suffering
from dementia, I think.
Yeah,
right?
And it's kind of it's actually a little bit, it's interesting to read about because he knows he's Tony Bennett. He knows all of the lyrics to his songs. Right. He doesn't miss a beat when he's performing. Yeah. And so that's just, and I remember reading about it, and the doctor that they were interviewing was talking about how music is so deeply ingrained in the emotional part of our brain that, you can remember a song and every lyric to that song when, the rest of your brain has been so just
birthdays and grocery lists and recipes.
People, you know what I mean? Like super important stuff. So that's just, it's very sad, of course. But it is really interesting to me just from a scientific standpoint, just how the brain works and what's going on there. And it's just, it's also just interesting to see how some people just seem to last forever. I mean, we've got Betty White, who's 99 years old, and it's like oh my God, and she's sharp as a tack. You know what I mean? It's she could still act and do her thing. So it's amazing. And then a little bit of sad news. So Everett Morton, co-founding member and drummer of the influential UK ska band The Beat, probably best known for the single Mirror in the Bathroom, has died at the age of 71 years old. So rest in peace, Everett Morton. As a big ska fan, still am, but was a huge ska fan in the 90s. I definitely was a fan of The Beat, and he will be missed.
Couple other things here. So Adele is back. We're going to be talking about her a little bit as well.
She's back.
But she dropped a little teaser thing, and she did some interviews and stuff, and it sounds like we're getting a new album. They haven't said anything officially, although there's been some billboards with the number 30 that everyone's talking about.
Yeah, I read about that.
And she talked about this thing that happened back in 2017, which I didn't really remember, but when she mentioned it, I went back and looked at it. And when she won the Grammy, or all the Grammys that year, when she won Album of the Year and she beat Beyonce's Lemonade, she like went up on the stage and she talked about how she didn't want this award and that it belonged to Beyonce, which, man, like Kanye went up and he said that like everyone's always saying that Beyonce deserves the awards, and they're probably not wrong, but it's like it's a weird thing that it all seems to be about that one artist. But apparently she broke her Grammy and like snapped it in half and offered to give half of it to Beyonce, which is just such a weird thing. And you can't find video of it, but you can find photos of it. I think they washed that footage. They don't want they don't want a video of Adele snapping a Grammy in half.
No.
But yeah, so very excited to hear her. I will say that there was something viscerally bubbling inside of me when I heard her voice again. And I realized probably it's been 5 years, right, since we've heard anything from her. And a lot has happened since 2015, 2016.
Yeah, a lot.
And to hear her voice again, I'm like, man, that took me back. Like, it was kind of like this presence all of a sudden that I forgot that I kind of needed and wanted. So I'm excited to hear what happens next.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
We should probably save some Super Bowl talk for down the road a little bit. I've got thoughts, both excitement and also inquisitiveness, but maybe we'll bench that. But they did announce a very cool Super Bowl lineup. Everyone should check that out.
Very interesting and definitely exciting. Probably it's the first Super Bowl lineup that I even
just hip hop
feel
really
any excitement about in recent memory.
Yeah.
So that'll be something to talk about for sure, and that'll be interesting to see.
And then just two quick notes of just for vinyl nerd stuff. There's this Lil Wayne box set that they just announced, and it's all of his singles in 7-inch form, and then it's like a booklet with 7-inch records in it, and then an unreleased song. And they put the unreleased song out on Spotify, so you can hear it. It's not one of those things where they keep it from you. If we go back to talking about retail being gatekeepy, like this is how you undermine that. But I did think to myself, like as I saw this, it is interesting to think that vinyl, like this is something that I expected Radiohead to do. I didn't expect this to be something that Lil Wayne's audience was into. But maybe I'm totally off. I mean, look, people want it. There's a whole lot of FOMO in the hip hop community, just like there is in others. And I feel like maybe this is a thing that's either starting or that I'm not aware of, that I thought was just reserved to like classic and indie rock nerds. But apparently maybe it's across the board, maybe this. Yeah.
If I'm really thinking about it, it probably was hip hop that dragged out the vinyl and turned the turntable itself longer than maybe it would have otherwise if it wasn't such a huge part of what hip hop is.
Right.
And that, I'm speculating here, but that. So obviously, I'm sure that had something to do with the continued popularity of vinyl, particularly through, what some might call the dark ages of vinyl in, through the 90s when everybody was buying CDs. The 7-inch thing is a little bit interesting to me.
Yeah, right. I would have assumed 12-inch singles like what they were using for hip hop. You're still going to your dance record stores even when vinyl was quote unquote dead and getting your 12-inch singles that you can spin. Yeah. So the 7-inch thing, it seems more fan indulgent than anything else, and like a way to keep it where you could put it on a bookshelf and it's not some massive thing.
So that part of it is a little bit strange.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You know, it's obviously it's for the super fans, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of 7 inches. I've been kind of downsizing my 7-inch collection, kind of giving them away to friends and stuff like that. Just because they're awkward to display, and I don't like just having to go through the process of putting the record on the platter physically for one song. You know, I'm already annoyed by, you know, obviously, it sounds better when a record runs at 45 RPM and it's a double LP, and you know, you've only got 3 to 4 songs per side rather than 7 or 8. But having one song and then having to flip it over, and you know, no. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say, and you don't see it as much anymore, but I remember going to Tower Records or Virgin Records, and they'd have a 45 section, and they'd also have a CD singles section. And if you scoured through those, both because the CD singles were usually imports, and also a lot of the 45s were like British imports, you'd get weird B-sides. You'd get demos. You'd get unreleased songs. You'd get covers. And going back to our earlier conversation with from Trey about, you know, buying stuff and using DSPs to listen, sometimes, you know, if the band didn't put out a B-sides collection or whatever, there's songs that I know that are sitting on 45s on my shelf that I have a USB turntable and I ripped a version of it, and that's the only version of it that I know of. Wow. I'm sure that you could probably find it somewhere, on some kind of something, but so as you're giving away or selling those 45s, I would just check your B-sides. Check your B.
Yeah, I remember I did buy a good number of CD singles, but CD singles back in the day, they would have 4 or 5 songs on them. It wasn't just, you know, one song and one B-side. And then, you know, even recently, I guess it wasn't too recently now, but Radiohead, when they put out the OK Not OK release, they put, you know, all those B-sides in that package. So it was, you know, and I think we're going to get some more of that with the Kid A Amnesia package that we're getting this year. So it's nice when bands do that. But yeah, I find it a little bit strange, you know, folks that collect 7 inches these days. But that's just me.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of collecting 7 inches, so there is a pop-up store in the UK, which I'm a big Queen fan. I think you are too.
Heck yeah.
This feels like, obviously, we've got our sister community and podcast in the video game realm, and this feels very familiar to that, where it's a pop-up store where you can go in and get exclusive things you can't get anywhere else, and they're only making a certain number of limited run whatever. And it just, like, if I was a massive Queen fan, if I was a diehard, I'd be freaking out right now, because they're doing this thing. And again, like, this feels like a easy cash in. I won't say Nintendo, but I just did. Like, it feels like that same kind of thing. So Queen is printing 4 exclusive 45s. Each one's dedicated to a different member of the band, and each one has a mega hit that either was written or features predominantly that band member, and then a deep cut that also represents that band member. It's not unreleased songs. It doesn't seem like it's like lost B-sides or anything like that.
Right.
It's literally something that you're going to want to catch them all, and you're going to want to have all 4 of them on a shelf next to each other, so you have the 4 faces of this unique 4-set collection together. And I am not bitten by the bug, but this is one of those things where you and I will hop on eBay 3 months from now and look for these things, and they will be crazy money.
And did I hear you correctly? This is only at the pop-up store.
A UK pop-up store.
Oh, well, yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
No chance of getting anything like that except
Exactly.
at extreme scalper prices.
That's
My
right.
goodness.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right.
So I love the idea of a pop-up store. I think they're really neat. But keeping that to just in-store is it's tough. At least I would say that if they included rarities on it, that would probably frustrate me even more. Because then you're only allowing those people to have that music. So I guess this is a collector's item I'm more okay with.
It's not as egregious.
but it's still that like kind of gut twist of like, that kind of looks, Roger Taylor looks pretty dope on that cover. Brian May, I kind of want the Brian May one, you know?
For real.
You want to hit a couple of dates before we flip the script?
Yeah, we're definitely going a little bit longer than we normally do, but that's cool. Yeah. A few music history notes and some birthdays. So October 12th, 1974 was the very first appearance of Blondie at CBGB's in New York City. The name Blondie derived from truck drivers who would catcall "Hey Blondie" to Debbie Harry as they drove by. Just
love
fun
Blondie.
I love them. But that was a new little piece of trivia for me, the origin of their name.
Blondie almost wrote a James Bond song as well. So fitting that they're on here.
I didn't even know that. Okay, you'll have to spill the beans on that a little bit. October 12th, 1997. And here's another, just like last episode, another musician death that I had no idea was so, relatively bizarre. So October 12th, 1997, John Denver was killed when the handmade experimental aircraft that he was flying ran out of gas and crashed off the coast of Monterey Bay, California. Had no idea that that's how John Denver passed away.
So I knew it was a plane crash. I did not know it was a experimental. I thought this was Buddy Holly. I thought this was Leonard Skinner. I thought it was Aaliyah.
Strange.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Who made this thing? I want more.
I don't know who made it. I would have to dig deeper into that. That's for a different episode.
Yeah, he was an artist that I did a deep dive into a few years back, just randomly, like got a few LPs for very cheap at a Goodwill, and I was like, John Denver seems fun. I'll check him out. He's cool. Big John Denver fan, actually. He's really great.
Yeah. Who isn't? Anyway. October 14th, 1957. We talked about the Everly Brothers recently. They had their first #1 single on the U.S. singles chart with Wake Up Little Susie, and was actually, and I was laughing at this, but it was actually banned by some U.S. radio stations due to quote unquote suggestive lyrics. If you can imagine that. Obviously, there's certain things implied, but this is 1957 after all. So, and then some birthdays. October 11th, 1946, American rock, R&B, and soul singer Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates had the #1 hit "Man Eater" in 1982, as well as 5 other #1 hits in the U.S. That's a lot of #1 hits.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Big fan. Also October 11th in 1971, MC Lyte, U.S. female rapper with the 1997 hit Cold Rock a Party. October 12th, 1935, Luciano Pavarotti. And if there's one artist that was played in my house just as much, if not more, than Tony Bennett, it was Pavarotti.
Really, Pavarotti?
Well, yeah,
wow.
Italian household, so... My dad
so,
would, be cooking
Where's
dinner.
Sinatra?
Yeah, some Sinatra, not as much. Okay. He was definitely more. My dad was definitely more into the Tony Bennett and Dean Martin than Sinatra. I didn't hear a whole lot of Sinatra. But yeah, plenty of Pavarotti. And then October 13th, 1941, Paul Simon, singer-songwriter, doesn't need much of an explanation who Paul Simon is. October 14th, 1946, Justin Hayward, songwriter, lead singer, guitarist of the Moody Blues. Also, I've got a couple of his solo albums. And just a really influential guitar player, at least for me.
Yeah.
And then October 16th, 1947, American musician and songwriter Bob Weir, best known as founding member of Grateful Dead, who released more than 140 albums during their career. Obviously, most of those live albums, but still. A lot of them, yeah. But still. Yeah. That's a lot of albums to release. 1960, also October 16th, Bob Mould, American musician, principally known for his work as a guitarist and vocalist for Husker Du in the 80s and Sugar in the 1990s.
And the Foo Fighters.
And
he played the Foo Fighters a bunch,
worked with the Foo Fighters. I know there's at least one song that he does vocals on the Wasting Light album. And then last but not least, October 16th, 1977, John Mayer, Grammy award-winning singer, songwriter, and guitarist. So that's the news and the birthdays this week. I am absolutely thrilled to be diving into these Bond themes, and I hope we can at least touch on all of them. However, there are quite a bit. 26, I believe, if we don't count the kind of silly parody Casino Royale that came out. Yeah. Whether you count that or not, still, it's an impressive number of films in a series, and some fantastic music. And we're going to talk about most, if not all of them, on Side B. So stick with us. We'll be back on Side B with some Bond music. Side B of this episode of Retro Groove, and with no further ado, because I really do want to try to at least mention every single one of these songs and films, we're going to dive into the long-standing tradition of James Bond 007 films and their accompanying theme songs, of which there are a great many by a great number of artists. Some of them are fantastic. Some of them are but none of them are bad, really. Yeah. Well, okay. There might be one that's a little bit bad, but we'll get to that one later, though. Okay, so before we get into the songs themselves, I know I talked a little bit about, my first experience with the James Bond franchise being GoldenEye in 1995, long before I knew about or watched any of the, earlier, particularly the Sean Connery films. But what about you? What was your kind of introduction to the Bond franchise and kind of your first experiences with that? Yeah. I mean, they were on in the house a whole bunch. I think now there's one or two times a year, or if there's a film that comes out where there's just a Bond marathon on, and you could just see them all the time. But
There would be, whether it was Turner Classic Movies or the original AMC or whatever it was, that would just have them on from time to time. I don't think we owned any. Like, as I thought about this, we didn't have them on VHS. Like, I don't think we really have any on DVD. So it was kind of just in the theaters or when something was on TV.
Right.
But it would be on if it was on TV. And the themes to Goldfinger, You Only Live Twice, Diamonds Are Forever, those were things that my mom would sing around the house just randomly.
Oh, nice.
She would sing a hook from it or something. It was kind of woven into the fabric of our, the collective madness of any family where you have your inside jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so lots of Sean Connery. My parents didn't really like Roger Moore that much, and so we would watch those movies, but my parents would kind of goof on them, and that's fair enough. Some of those movies are really goofy.
Yeah,
but,
some of them really are a little campy.
but they're kind of fun. Yeah, like they're entertaining.
Yeah, they're all
fun.
fun.
Yeah, so I was a big fan of the movies again because I was so young and I wasn't used to seeing people have car chases and shoot guns and women who were wearing nothing, and I'm like 9 years old, and I'm like, what is going on here? That's what?
Or you see, weird stuff like the car turning into a submarine and stuff like that.
Or a movie called Octopussy, where I'm like, excuse you?
Should I be? Yeah.
Am I supposed to be here? I don't think I'm supposed to be here right now.
I'm not sure what that's even supposed to mean. Exactly.
But yeah, the music is such an important history to it all for me, for sure. Yeah.
And it kind of so starting in 1962 with Dr. No, there actually wasn't a vocal song for the intro sequence. It was literally John Barry's instrumental Bond theme, which kind of became the overarching Bond theme, which is used throughout the history of the films. And a lot of the songs will use that and kind of weave it in and out or use it somehow in the production of the song. And you'll hear it, throughout the history of the movies. But that first initial John Barry tune it was a little bit contested as far as who actually wrote it. And when you look at some sources, they'll actually split the credit between John Barry and, of course, the name is escaping me now. 1 second.
I think it was like Martin Norman or something like that.
Monty Norman.
Monty Norman.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of contention as far as who actually wrote the original Bond theme song. It was arranged by John Barry for sure. But there's some sources that will list Monty Norman as the composer. So there's a little bit, some question marks there. And I know that there was actually some legal battles over it as well. But that was for Dr. No in 1962. And then obviously that theme continued on throughout the history of the franchise.
It's foundational. Yeah,
definitely. And then, that kind of cemented, it was a little bit surfy. It was a little bit
calypso,
jazzy, a little bit lounge. And it kind of like, okay, this is what spy music, quote unquote, is supposed to sound like. And so it kind of created that sound. And then once
it's intense. There's like an urgency to it, but it's also kind of like it suave and like it moves and it's like it's got a beat and a rhythm to it. It's not just like dire or stressful. It seems very confident, and it just somehow perfectly embodied exactly what they were trying to get across there, and has for all the decades since.
So they nailed it from the get-go,
Yeah,
basically.
100%. Yeah.
Even with some missteps later, that theme itself, you know what I mean? They could just use that original theme song as the intro to any even modern Bond movie, and it would just work. It's pretty timeless. But then once we get into the second movie, From Russia with Love in 1963, we start to see the introduction of vocalists adding to the introductory music, the title sequence at the beginning. And From Russia with Love was Matt Monro. And, you know, that's one that I had not seen until, you know, way later on. I probably didn't see From Russia with Love until probably the late 2000s. And, you know, it's a little bit dated. It's the early 60s. So it's still, you know, a little bit conservative, and, you know, the music itself, it's okay. But it definitely, at least these days, comes across as a little bit dated.
Yeah.
But then we really get into the meat and potatoes of what it really should have been. Goldfinger came out in 1964. It's also kind of crazy that Dr. No was 62, From Russia with Love was 63, Goldfinger was 64, Thunderball was 65. They just kind of like,
you had
rolling these things out.
In the 60s. You had 6 Bond films. It was
Insane.
a factory. Yeah.
But so we see Goldfinger and Shirley Bassey, who ends up doing 3.
Four.
Ends up,
three.
Technically,
3. Yeah, we can go with 3.
She ends up with 3, and it should have been 4.
There it
which
is.
We'll talk about.
Yeah.
And man, what a song! So Shirley Bassey's voice is just so captivating, and it fits that. Like you mentioned with the original theme, it's like sexy and suave and confident, but also there's an edge, some tension to it. You know what I mean? So I think it fits the music and the whole vibe of a, you know, sexy spy movie, just in her vocalizations. And man, that's. It would be really, really difficult for me to put a top 5 together, but Goldfinger would definitely be on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say that there's 2 things out of this for me right off the gate. One is it suddenly makes me realize that I want, for whatever reason that we could probably pick apart, a woman singing most of these themes.
Yes.
There's something about it that is so much more impactful than hearing a dude sing about a suave dude's world. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And there's probably something very inappropriate about it. I don't know. But without unpacking it, it immediately, if you say to me, which I will ask later, who do I want to sing a future Bond song, or is there an artist? My head immediately goes to women. It's just like and there's a few great guys on this list, but it just feels so much better and more appropriate and more impactful when it's a woman. And then
I agree with that 100%.
And then obviously there's a marketing aspect to it too, but having it be the name of the movie and the name of the story and the character, it's just, it ties you in, it gets you ready. It's like it's like you're getting buckled up for the roller coaster and you can't wait for the ride, and you're hearing the entry song and it's perfect, you know?
Absolutely.
It's like shining lights on the marquee. Here's what I'm here for.
Waiting in line at Splash Mountain and seeing all of the, you know what I mean? You know what you're getting a taste of what you're about to get into.
And that trickles into Thunderball too.
Yep.
Because Thunderball wasn't supposed to be Thunderball. Nope. It was supposed to be Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Something like that.
Yeah, and they had Dionne Warwick record it. They weren't happy with that, so they had Shirley Bassey then re-record it. But then I'm assuming that there were some kind of numbers because, again, like you said, they came out year after year. I don't know the full backstory here.
I think what I was reading is that Shirley Bassey did it first.
Oh, okay.
But then there was a problem. There was a problem with the length of that recording, and then they couldn't get Shirley back in time, so they went with Dionne Warwick. But then the producers, I think, didn't end up liking what she did.
The final cut, yeah.
So then they really changed things up and went with Tom Jones.
Yeah, but there's something there too about, I think, the impact that Goldfinger had, where I think they knew they had a winning formula early on with this James Bond thing, and then when they had that next piece of the puzzle click, where it's like you have the song that has the name of the movie in it, and it resonates, and it sells your movie, and it makes it amplifies it. And I think that there must have been something there that said to them, you know what, we need Thunderball. It can't be Mr. Whatever. It's got to be Thunder. Someone say Thunderball. Someone sing it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it kind of it makes for some awkward lyrics because how do you sing about Thunderball? You know what I mean? And so I picture this scenario where, you know, they hand Tom Jones a pair of headphones and he's listening to the music, and it's like, all right, it's called Thunderball, go. And you know, obviously I'm sure that's not how it happened, but it's like, how do you make a song out of that? And so it definitely, you know, particularly with you know, something like Thunderball, it makes for some kind of awkward lyrics.
Yeah. And apparently there was a Johnny Cash version or a Johnny Cash iteration.
Really?
Yeah, that's out there somewhere. I haven't listened to it, but I saw something that we almost had a Johnny Cash Thunderball, which wouldn't have fit. I mean, Tom Jones, again, if we're talking about...
I mean, Tom Jones barely works anyway.
Yeah. But I do think, I'm assuming with all those recuts and the timeline, that it might not be that different from that premise that you just put out there. I mean, like, I'm assuming that it's something where it's just like, write something now because we need to get it out. Like, let's go. So it probably wasn't helped by the situation.
No.
You Only Live Twice, though, so you have a 2-year gap there, and that song is gorgeous. That was another one that got sung around the house a whole lot. And I believe that was one that they approached Frank to do, because I think they had a decent experience with Tom, and he's like, let me tell you about my daughter. And it works, like, spot on, like, definitely worked.
Yeah. Great song. And I'm glad they kind of, you know, brought it back to having the sultry female voice. And this is the one I was mentioning in the Discord. This was one that I had not heard before I started. There was only a few of them. There's only maybe 5 or 6 that I had never heard before I, you know, took the deep dive this weekend and listened to all of them all the way through. And I put on You Only Live Twice, and which I've actually, and that's one of the few films that I haven't seen before either. And of course, it starts out with the and I was like, why do I know this? Very weird. This is bringing very strange memories to the forefront of my mind. And then
you just start saying the word millennium.
Yes, it dawned on me. And that's so ingrained in my head, that silly song, because that was like the theme song for my graduating class for our graduation ceremony. Yeah. So that's why that line was so deeply ingrained in my head. And it was such a weird, trippy moment where, you know, I didn't know, I didn't have the foreknowledge that that's where that sample came from. Mm-hmm. And so hearing it and you're like, oh my God, I don't know, one of those weird discovery moments when your brain makes the connection.
Yeah.
But it's a great song. And I actually ended up listening to it 2 or 3 times just because I was enjoying it so much. And I, it's not like I'm sitting here at home listening to a bunch of Nancy Sinatra, but man, I really, really enjoyed that. And now I want to see the movie because it's, again, I think only one of a small handful. I can count on one hand the number of Bond movies I have not seen yet. So I'm excited to look up that one.
I think it's Connery's last too. That's the last one.
Yes.
Or maybe he comes back. I don't remember. I feel like there was something weird with that, but I'm pretty sure that was his last film.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. That's a completely different topic for a different podcast to cover.
Yeah.
But because the next one is kind of one of the weird oddball ones with On Her Majesty's Secret Service. 2 years later, 1969, the only film to have George Lazenby as 007. And then also it's kind of a little bit of an oddball because we have Louis Armstrong doing We Have All the Time in the World, which is number one. You don't think of Louis Armstrong as the type of vocalist to do a Bond film.
No.
We also have, basically the first time that the song is not the same title as the title of the movie. And also it wasn't even used in the opening credit sequence.
Yeah.
So a mixture of oddballs there. It's not a bad song. It's actually a great song. I'm a big Louis Armstrong fan. It just doesn't really sound like a Bond song. Yeah. And there's a few of those. And we'll talk about those as they come up. But this one really doesn't have that same sexy and urgent and intense spy vibe to it at all, really.
It's actually a good movie. I remember enjoying this movie. I didn't know it was the only one that George did. That's pretty interesting. But it's a good movie. It's just the music from it is not memorable for me at all.
I haven't seen it. I remember reading actually that George Lazenby actually announced even before filming was complete that he was only going to do one. He
really?
Made that decision. He was definitely not going to do any more after that.
He's in the history books at that point, so whatever.
For sure.
But I see Diamonds Are Forever is next, and that is a Sean Connery film. So I guess Sean comes back then. So he left the Bond thing and then came back, which is so weird. I wonder what the deal is there. But it does seem like they probably... I wonder what the box office was on Her Majesty's Secret Service or the response was or whatever, because obviously they just did a full return to form. They're like, let's bring Sean back. We need Shirley Bassey. Sing the hook. Go 100%. For it. And that's a great movie too. Diamonds Are Forever is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a really good one. That's one of the, in my opinion, one of the better ones from that kind of early era, up there with Goldfinger, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And then 2 years later, here we go.
You jam.
Live and Let Die, 1973. Paul McCartney and Wings, the first Bond theme song to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song. And holy moly, does it deserve it. Because what a jam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cinematic. It's cool. Epic. It's interesting. Yeah. It's got that Paul McCartney thing that he was doing where it's almost like 3 songs in one that shifts back and forth. And it feels cinematic. It definitely would be in my top 3 for all of the Bond songs. It's just a fantastic song.
We had a lot of shout outs for it in the Discord as we were kind of talking about this. I think that it kept coming up over there.
It's probably the most mentioned when we asked about favorites. I mean, I can't blame anybody for saying that would be their number one favorite. It's really, really good.
Yeah. The only thing is I can't really remember the movie. I don't remember the premise as much. I'd have to go back and look at it. Maybe it would spark it.
I do believe I saw it at one point, but I don't feel like it was very memorable, which is funny because it's probably one of the most memorable songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, granted, it would have been well over 20 years ago, if not 25, that I actually saw it. But yeah, I don't remember really anything about it. Anyway,
So weird.
It's a fantastic song. And then we go through a weird period here. So, 1974, The Man with the Golden Gun. This is another one that I have not seen, and I had also not heard the song before.
Oh, it's a great song. Yeah.
It's actually a really good song. Yeah. And
who knows who Lulu is?
I
don't
had
know
never even heard of Lulu before like yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Scottish artist, singer, I believe an actress as well, if I'm not mistaken. And I tell you, she kills it. She does an amazing song. Unfortunately, I don't think it ended up being a great Bond film because I don't feel like I've ever seen it playing on TV. I've never seen it, and you know, it could be decent, could be good. I don't know. I've never seen it. Have you seen it?
Yeah. I've seen it, and it's also a really great mode in GoldenEye if you're playing battle mode.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Man with the Golden Gun is
the Golden Gun is the
notch.
one shot kill, right? So
that's right. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I knew of the Golden Gun, but you know the movie that it's based off of. Never seen that. But
and apparently this is one that Alice Cooper, again, as we have these people putting in for songs, like it became an institution. You had people like Paul McCartney getting nominated. Alice Cooper has had a song that he put in for Man with the Golden Gun. But again, the producer just didn't think it was a fit, and they wanted a powerful female voice, and I think they got it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's kind of interesting that she never came back to do more because I just feel like her voice fits the style so well. But they kind of took a complete left turn with The Spy Who Loved Me. Once again, one where the song title does not match the title of the film. But The Spy Who Loved Me in 1977 featured Carly Simon singing Nobody Does It Better, which
like a ballad, more of a ballad.
It's a ballad, which kind of starts a theme of ballads the next 4 or 5 films.
Yeah, for real.
And again, we have a song that just kind of more sounds like a song that the artist would put out on their own and doesn't necessarily sound like a Bond theme.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great song. It's a Carly Simon. Like I tried to pull it up on Apple Music, and it pulled up a live version that she did, later on in her career. And so it's obviously one that she considers part of her catalog. And it's a great song, but it just doesn't sound like a Bond song. And I did see this one. It's been a really long time. Wasn't particularly memorable. But obviously, we got The Spy Who Shagged Me from
sure did.
from it. So it certainly was influential to some folks. And we wouldn't have Austin Powers without James Bond.
I could use an Austin Powers comeback. I don't know if he can live in the 2020s in a politically correct culture, but man, could I use an Austin Powers 4. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, you used to be able to get away with a lot more
Beyonce.
of that stuff.
Yeah.
Beyonce, she was in
Foxy
the
Shazam.
second one, right?
The third, I think it was the third one.
The third one? Yeah. They all
Gold member.
After the first one, they all kind of just meld together in my brain. I saw the first one so many times as a kid.
So good.
But I digress. We're getting.
Well, we're on the Moonraker, and there's plenty of stuff in Austin Powers when they go to space. Such a campy, over the top movie. I mean, we're knee deep now in the Roger Moore era of
getting real silly.
so weird. I mean, and again, like Shirley Bassey, welcome back. Love to hear you, but
Could have been a
the
better
least
film to
memorable
come
of
back.
all of them. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it's not a bad song either, but
it's fine.
so we going back to GoldenEye 64, we got the Moonraker Laser thanks
We
to
do.
but
The
which
lasers are great.
when just such a silly movie.
Yep.
And you know, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just kind of silly. And
It's still fun to go back to. There's a bunch of these on here where it's like they're not good movies, but they're popcorn movies. They're fun, man. Yeah.
Yes. But, you know, we do get Shirley Bassey again. And it's a little bit more of a ballad, and we keep this ballad theme up throughout the next two or three. We've got For Your Eyes Only, 1981, Sheena Easton.
Gorgeous song. Definitely worth giving a listen to. That was another one that got sung around the house a lot. That's a very,
I
very
can see
pretty
why.
song.
It's a memorable song. At least for me, not a very memorable Bond movie.
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah.
No, but and I remember hearing the song. I don't know if it was on the radio or my parents had it on at one point, but you know, that was the year before I was born. So I definitely have some really early memories of hearing it. And you know, not sure where, but I didn't see this one. I actually have not seen. I haven't seen this one. Have you seen it?
I don't think so. I like once you that like it's easier to remember the over the top campy ones as opposed to like he's doing some spy stuff and I don't really remember what spy stuff he's doing. Is he doing it in
it must not have been
Southeast
real interesting.
Asia, or is he in Russia this time? Like Moonraker, I'm like, oh, okay, that's the one where he went to space.
Exactly. Yeah, it's hard to follow that up.
Yeah, Octopussy's the one with the harem. I was like, I kind of remember some of these, yeah.
Of course. And so speaking of Octopussy 1983, of course, you know, this is definitely one where they felt like they could not name the song the same as the title of the movie. But we get another solid 80s ballad with Rita Coolidge singing All Time High. Not a bad song at all. Probably not quite as memorable as For Your Eyes Only or Nobody Does It Better. But a good song in its own right. And this was one of the more memorable, probably one of the most memorable 80s Bond movies. And I think the only 80s Bond movie that I've seen multiple times. And then again in is this also 1983 or did I put that down wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think what happens here, and again, I should have done a little bit more homework. I think that there's an unofficial Bond movie. I'm pretty sure. So the weird thing is when you think about the era that we're in, where Disney owns a bunch of stuff, or Universal Studios has a bunch of stuff or whatever, the Bond films have always been controlled by these two companies that are run by two men and their families, and they've passed on. And it's the Broccolis and somebody else. I'm blanking on the other name, but it's Eon Entertainment and it's Dan Jazz Entertainment. And they license it through MGM or Sony or whatever it is, and there's great distribution deals and branding deals. But I think that there's been some weirdness over the years where stuff like this happened.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now.
Because I want to say that's Sean Connery again, but that's like 10 years later.
No, this one, Never Say Never Again, was... No, yeah, it was Sean Connery, which is very
Sean
weird.
Sean Connery again, and I don't think that it's an official... I don't think it's quote-unquote an official thing. I think the screenplay, the story, I think it's all a little different. I don't think that it was produced by Eon or the Broccolis or any of them.
It was released by Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And the film was commercially successful, although less so than the Eon produced Octopussy. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Directed by
look,
Irving
you have such a huge
Kershner, which is
enterprise.
interesting. He directed Empire Strikes Back, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Really interesting. So it's definitely something to dig a little bit deeper into.
But the fact that we didn't get that situation arise again, I mean, obviously you're talking about 20 years in, you have an institution now, you're 12 movies in at this point, something like that. So you are going to have competition in the market, but I think that I'm assuming that they were able to stamp that out pretty quickly, that like they sorted whatever trademarks that they needed to sort out to ensure that Warner Brothers or whoever it is wasn't kind of trying to nudge in on these films anymore and do anything else with the Bond name.
Right. Yeah, they must have gotten it worked out because they start to get a little bit more spaced out, and you definitely get a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
And that.
Well, so A View to a Kill is next, and A View to a Kill is. So a lot of people don't like that movie much because it is very campy, because Roger Moore should not have been James Bond anymore. He was in his 50s and he was running around with a 20-year-old, and it did just feel off. But it's Christopher Walken as this crazy biologically engineered tycoon. The song, I remember the intro vividly.
Yep.
Like the song was so cool and so good and so fit the aesthetic for me. The music video for it is the weirdest, like 80s random schlock.
Of course,
like it's very funny to watch.
It was 1985, of course.
Yeah, Simon Le Bon has a Walkman, has a cassette player, and he can pull a little antenna out of it, and he pushes a button and it opens up, and he's got a knob, and he turns the knob to like number 3, and it says helicopter, and he pushes a button and a helicopter flies to the Eiffel Tower, and it's just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But all the band members are on the Eiffel Tower. But anyway,
peak 80s.
Grace Jones, such a badass, and I was entranced by her as Mayday, where she's just flipping around, kicking butt, like this just incredibly powerful, like strong, dominant, and ultimately, like, spoiler alert, like comes around at the end of it and is no longer a villain, and she helps save the day. This powerful woman. I just remember just being completely entranced by this movie, and they wind up on the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's a blimp, and they blow it up. And like Christopher Walken, like it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, it's fun.
I think that nostalgia definitely plays in for me on this one, but I think like it's easy to watch, it's fun to watch, and the song clicks for me.
Yeah.
Like this isn't the best. It's one of the worst films, and it's a decent, good song. But for me, this is probably number one. Like across the, like, I love this movie. I love this song. I could watch this 20 more times and just have a great time. I've got a poster of it hanging upstairs in my house. Like it's
well, so it's definitely the best song that doesn't sound like a Bond theme song, because it sounds like a Duran Duran song, which is fantastic, and it's a great song, and it deserves to be recognized, but it definitely doesn't sound like a Bond theme song. And it's funny because next we end up with The Living Daylights, which boy. The song is weird, the movie's weird. I have such weird vague memories of it, but I don't remember enjoying it really. The song isn't even really all that memorable. It's not necessarily bad, but it's just like whatever, you know what I mean? It's like,
I feel that way about both of the Timothy Dalton films. Like they're fine. License to Kill's good. Like he's not my Bond. He's not it. Neither of them.
I don't think he's anybody's
sell
Bond.
me on it enough.
Maybe there's a few outliers out there.
Yeah,
That's
it
like,
could be.
Dalton
But
was
the Gladys
definitely
Knight
the
song,
best.
the Gladys Knight song is good too.
License to Kill, 1989.
Yeah,
That's a good
but
one.
Until I feel like GoldenEye. I mean, you look at that's that 6-year gap.
That's a big
And
gap.
they were working on something there and trying to sort it all out. And like you said earlier on, Pierce Brosnan. I mean, he was our Bond. He was
Absolutely.
like it reinvented that franchise that they wind up doing later on, obviously with Daniel Craig. But GoldenEye is probably my favorite of his 4.
Oh,
movie
definitely,
run.
definitely.
Yeah. The second one, Tomorrow Never Dies, is good too. But Tina Turner, the GoldenEye song is really great.
She nails it.
So good. Perfect.
It's a wonderful Bond song, and it reintroduces the franchise to a new generation of moviegoers. And she's, dare I say, she's almost channeling Shirley Bassey here. It's like she was either listening to those original Bassey tunes that she did, or, was given some kind of direction to go in a certain, with a certain vocal styling. But either way, or maybe she's just being herself and the music just kind of makes it sound like that. But man, she absolutely kills it. And I was blasting it in my living room earlier today, and it's so good.
It's really good.
And, of course, the Nintendo 64 game cements it as just a cultural phenomenon, at least for folks in our age group. But, that music was such a part of that game. And so, you play the game so much and the music just gets ingrained in you. And the Tina Turner song kind of sounds similar. They just have that similar style. So it's just brings back a lot of really good memories when I listen to it.
Same.
But yeah, definitely the best of the Brosnan Bond movies. Tomorrow Never Dies was 2 years later, 1997. And this was Sheryl Crow's entry. And now I'm not necessarily a big Sheryl Crow fan. I can't ever remember a time where I purposefully put on Sheryl Crow to listen to ever, what I mean? But, good artist, nothing bad to say about her, but holy moly, does she nail this song? And I know people there's mixed opinions out there about this one in particular,
I agree.
But oh my God, she absolutely nails it.
Yeah.
And it would be in my top 5, honestly. It's such a great song. The movie, for me, it was okay. Obviously, a little bit of a disappointment after GoldenEye. But it was still, as far as Bond movies go, it was good. It was a good movie.
Yeah. I
just
think the
not
films were in a
particularly
steady...
memorable.
Yeah, I think they were in a decline. Like, I think Pierce Brosnan started off hot, and then it just kind of... Like, my friends and I, because of the game and because of everything, we went to go see... Like, this is what you went to go see in the movie theater when you were in high school. And each time we walked out there and being like, that was cool. Stuff blew up. There was a very attractive lady, like...
It was kind of like... It was kind of like going to see Batman and Robin, and you were just kind of like...
We saw Batman. Yeah. Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy was cool.
Guess.
Yeah. We saw the Batmobile.
It happened. Some stuff happened.
Yeah. There was a gun.
There was a plot, I guess.
Yeah. I love The World Is Not Enough. That Garbage song is so good. I think Shirley...
One of the best.
Again, like you have that Tina to Cheryl to Shirley run there where each of them just hit them out of the park. And then the Madonna song, I think, just fell flat for me. It never hit for me. And it's funny because if you were to say, is there a female artist that you think should have sung a Bond film at one point? Maybe I would have said Madonna. There's like she fits the bill. But we're talking about 2002 Madonna.
Yeah.
I don't think it
that
worked.
Was in Madonna's weird and probably misguided foray into EDM.
Like the alt EDM space.
Yeah. And so
music
earlier when I said that none of them were bad, and then I kind of backtracked on that a little bit.
Yeah.
We try to keep it positive on this podcast. I think this is a bad song.
Yeah, it's not great. No. Yeah, it's definitely not great.
It could have been so much better.
Especially because we just came off of 3 really strong moments. Like you had the momentum that even if the movies weren't that great, each of those songs, I remember them on MTV.
Yeah, very memorable.
I remember hearing them on the radio. And then I remember hearing this and being like,
yeah,
what is this? And I remember seeing it. It was because this is the one I think Halle Berry's in.
Yeah,
like I remember seeing it.
Wasn't
I saw
bad.
it in the movie theater. Yeah, it was fine. But
if we were gonna have a great Madonna Bond song, it should have been, early '90s, mid '90s Madonna.
Yeah,
and not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally true. I feel like it missed the moment. And there were probably a bunch of other great artists at that time that could have done it, but these things play out the way that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you have another pause here then, right? You have 4-year gap. We're hunting for a new Bond.
We have a gap. Pierce Brosnan is getting up there, and he's a cool dude, just not Bond anymore. And I remember I have some vague memories of the announcement and some misgivings about, okay, so they're doing Casino Royale, which they kind of already did, but it was kind of a joke when they did it. So how is this going to play out?
Yeah.
But
is it a reboot? Like I remember feeling like are they restarting the franchise again? Although Bond doesn't really age, and then he ages, and then he ages in reverse again. So what are we even? We're just pretending that none of this happened.
There's no continuity there.
Yeah, no.
It's just Bond. But it turned out to be a really great movie, and we have Chris Cornell doing "You Know My Name." Great song, and it kind of goes back to it's a good reboot after Madonna's less than stellar entry. To Be Nice, and it has all of the, other than the sultry female voice, but we get the sultry Chris Cornell voice.
That's definitely true.
We get the sexy Chris Cornell, and it has all the other ingredients for a classic and fantastic Bond song. We get the original theme in there. We get the intensity, and it's just a really, really great song.
Yeah. I sent a note just as we were kind of talking about doing this episode. I sent a note to this like chain of old friends who we were the ones who were, like I said, we were playing the game and we were going to see all the movies in the theater. And I was like, what's your Bond song? And 2 of them came back and was like, I mean, there's the classics, but then there was this one where it was just like this, it was we were older now, like we were graduating from college. Bond grew up, we grew up, we loved Chris Cornell. We were used to women's voices, like love having female voices in Bond themes. And so when this came out, I was like, what is going on here? Yeah. And then you realize, and it floors you. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic Bond song.
And then we kind of get another grouping of oddballs. So, so Quantum of Solace comes out 2008. Obviously fairly hyped because off the success of Casino Royale. Weird title. Kind of a weird song. And with
Jack White and Alicia Keys.
It's a weird combination. I actually think that the combination of Jack White and Alicia Keys could work in the right context. This song, it's not even a bad song. It's there is something about the way that the song was produced that sounds really strange to my ear. And I'm not the only person that has mentioned this. I had somebody bring this up to me when I mentioned what we were doing this episode. There's something really kind of flat and empty feeling specifically in the production, which is hard to kind of put your finger on. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of, it's like, it sounds like Jack White and Alicia Keys are in a phone booth kind of thing. Like the production is off.
Which is not how you want it. Like you said before, a lot of these are cinematic, right? There's a bigness and an urgency, and there's these orchestral hits. It definitely kind of, I felt like it kind of missed the mark a little. It's a good song, and I think that if the situation had been different, I remember waiting for the Amy Winehouse announcement for a song, right? Like she seemed like this is the time when you start talking about like who's going to sing in the next Bond film. And I'm trying to remember when she passed, but I feel like it was right around this time when people were talking about like Amy Winehouse has to do the next one. And
her voice just seems like it would fit. Yeah. You know, she's got that kind of that Shirley Bassey quality to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's sad. It's tragic. She probably eventually would have done one, to be honest.
I think so too. Yeah.
And then, but you know, sadly, we don't have Amy Winehouse, but we did get Adele, and thank God for Adele. We got Skyfall in 2012, and man, it was
massive,
really great movie. Really, really, really great song. And just huge. And one of the best ones, if in my opinion, would probably hit my top 5.
Yeah. And it definitely felt, again, you have that moment where everything kind of gelled and clicked, and it felt like a Bond moment. It was just, the tone was perfect. And the story was great, and even this like the simplistic title of the movie, I've gone back and watched it. The movie's got its pros and cons. I feel like in the excitement of the moment, maybe we had a little bit of rose-colored glasses, and
maybe,
but it's still a very fun and watchable movie. But everything kind of coalesced so perfectly with that movie. And again, it was a weird thing. We had that 4-year gap again, even though we had the same Bond, we were waiting, and it felt like an eternity. And then all of a sudden, you hear Adele's voice. She was untouchable at that moment. She was just off of 21, I think, at that point, and it was everything aligned, and it's such a cool moment.
For sure. And then, you know, unfortunately, we have what's probably one of the missteps in the sequence here with, you know, we have Spectre in 2015. Decent movie, not one of the best. Probably, now I haven't seen the new one yet, but probably the least good of the
Daniel Craig run.
Of the Daniel Craig movies. This one was interesting because Radiohead was initially going to do the song. They wrote and recorded the song. It's a great song. It's obviously, you know, it definitely could fit as a Bond song. It's definitely still Radiohead in style.
It's a Radiohead song. Yeah.
And I think it would have fit rather well. But the producers didn't like it, so they scrapped it, and they went with Sam Smith doing Writings on the Wall.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
Sam
I mean,
Smith is
he was
kind
the
of
top. He was so buzzy at the time. He was such a massive star, and I think that they just wanted to capture that thing they got 3 years before that, and it did not work.
No, it really didn't. And I think the film probably could have been better. Again, wasn't bad, but could have been better. The song wasn't bad, but could have been better. And then we start to, we're 4 movies in with Daniel Craig, and there's a lot of question marks being thrown around. Is this Craig's last film? Is this the end of this generation of Bond films? Then there's all the rumors flying around. There was
Idris Elba.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to mention that. And I was ready because I'm a big Idris Elba fan, but I think even he said that he was probably too old for the role at that point. But here we are. It's 2021, and we've got the last Daniel Craig Bond movie with No Time to Die. And man, what a song. I'm not even really a Billie Eilish fan. I don't dislike Billie Eilish. I have nothing against her. I've for research and just knowledge purposes, I've listened to her albums. But it's not something that I put on really. It's just not my thing. However, No Time to Die, I have listened to a great many times. It is so good.
Stellar.
And man, it's not, I don't even know what else to say about it. It's such a great song. It's got, it's on the melancholy side rather than the, bombastic and dramatic side as far as the Bond movies go.
She doesn't really do that unless it's the production doing it for her. She's always a muted presence when she's singing in that sense. Yep.
But man, it really just works. And so I'm excited to eventually see it, hopefully sooner rather than later, in the context of the rest of the film. But for now, I sure am enjoying this, even though it came out, like, as we mentioned, quite a long time ago. I'm actually going to look up when it came out, but it's so good, and it doesn't have any right to be as good as it is almost.
Yeah. And I just hope the movies, I haven't seen it yet. I'm very excited to. I kind of want to take my mom. Like, I'm thinking about just like seeing if I can take my mom to go see a James Bond film together, because that's just a thing.
That's cool.
But yeah, I'm excited for this, but I'm like knowing the song now. Because I remember hearing Skyfall and then going to the theaters and hearing this song that was gorgeous and so impactful. And again, it's like the marquee of the ride that you're hopping on, where you're like, oh, I know this, it's familiar, it's amazing, and then here's the movie. It's such an experience. The one other thing that I forgot to mention back in Skyfall is that Muse had done a song that they had put in, which you can hear it. They a lot of times, like Blondie had a song that they were going to do, and they wound up just putting it on another album. You can go back. They don't scrap the songs. They will rework them a little bit. Ace of Base was supposed to do it, or they tried to do a song for GoldenEye, and it doesn't work at all.
That would have been weird.
Yeah. But the Muse song's really good. It just, again, it feels like a Muse song. Yeah. I feel like it could have worked, but it's that, like, there was Adele. Like, what were you going to do? Like, there was nothing you could do when that exists. Yeah,
exactly.
Sorry, Matt Bellamy, but damn.
So, man, it just, COVID timeline is so weird, because I can't believe how, I just looked it up. So No Time to Die, the song came out in February of 2020.
Because the movie was supposed to come out, they weren't shutting things down yet.
Oh.
Yeah. And so they didn't know they were going to have to do that. Yeah.
Right. And actually, so it was recorded in October of 2019, and Billie Eilish was only 18 at the time, making her the youngest artist to have written and recorded a Bond song. So that's a cool piece of trivia there. But that's the end of it. And I don't know who the next Bond is going to be. I don't know.
Who's the next Bond singer, though?
Exactly. That's what we really want to try to dive into at the tail end of the episode here is in a dream scenario, who are we picking as the next Bond theme song artist?
Well, so I love Lorde. I'm a big fan, and so I would toss her hat in the ring. But I'm also a big Lana fan. I feel like Lana should have done a Bond film or a Bond song early on, like second album era. Lana should have been in a Bond film.
Speaking of Lana Del Rey.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
just wanna
Sorry.
make sure.
But instead, we got Young and Beautiful from The Great Gatsby, which almost feels like a Bond song. So I feel like as a fan, I got my Bond song without it being a James Bond movie. But yeah, I thought about like, I went back to Duran Duran and I'm like, The Killers, Arcade Fire, like, is there anybody that's not some awesome woman that I would want for this? And I don't think there is. So I think for me it's Lorde, it's Lana Del Rey, or it's St. Vincent probably. I think
St. Vincent
any of those three could be really cool.
So I didn't think about this until you kind of mentioned it about less than an hour ago. But so my brain is going in two different directions. So obviously, we're coming off the Billie Eilish song, and we're just coming off of a new album. So I am thinking the kind of the sultry female vocal stylings of like a Casey Musgraves or Phoebe Bridgers kind of thing. I think that could fit really well. Obviously,
Casey,
I would not have ever imagined that Billie Eilish would have worked, but it works beautifully. So I feel like that could work. On the other hand,
you have a winner with Casey Musgraves. Man.
I think it works, right?
Yeah,
works really. I think it would work really, really well. Now that's at least in my brain, that's playing it a little bit safe.
Yeah.
So the other part of me wants to say, okay, let's it's 2021. We've been through a pandemic. Let's just do something crazy.
Coldplay.
Oh God, no.
Imagine Dragons.
I was gonna say let's get a great hip hop song in there. We do not have that or anything close to it. We had a misstep with the EDM with Madonna. We did make it work with the new wave in the 80s, at least with Duran Duran. Why don't we get Run the Jewels to do a Bond song? Why the hell not?
I mean, that'd be pretty dope.
Why not? What would that sound like?
My concern is if they went the hip hop route, they would try to get Drake, and it would be awful. I could see The Weeknd, like somebody like The Weeknd maybe doing it, but
that would definitely be a lot more likely. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't see the studio going with
Run
that.
The Jewels. Yeah.
I could see them going. I mean, we just had The Weeknd do the Super Bowl halftime show last year, right? Mm-hmm. So I could see that.
Look, Tyler the Creator did the entire theme and music for the Grinch movie, which was I took my 4-year-old at the time to go see that. Yeah, so
I did not know that.
all bets are off. Like
that's true.
It could be whatever. Having some kind of cool hip hop influence in there would be really.
I think
neat. I just don't think it's Megan Thee Stallion or Cardi B or any of those. I think
it would have to be somebody. And I know I came out the gate with Run the Jewels, but it would probably have to end up being somebody a little bit more family friendly than a Cardi B or Run the Jewels. And I don't really know who that is, but it would be cool. It would be
we're
fun.
gonna have a few years to figure that out because I guarantee you, we waited 5 years at this point, 4 or 5 years for this one.
6 years.
I think that we're switching bonds, and they're gonna be trying to figure out what's next for this series. So we got probably 5 years to find the next fantastic, amazing hip hop and R&B woman who can sing us a Bond song.
Why not? Or just mix
that'd
it
be
up.
Awesome.
Have both of them. Have Casey Musgraves and Run the Jewels on the same track. Why not?
Now you're just getting into Jack White and Alicia Keys territory.
Yeah. Anyway, so this was a hell of a lot of fun. Definitely our longest episode yet.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, thank you for sticking with us. But being music nerds and video game nerds and movie nerds all together, there was no way that this wasn't going to be one of the lengthier ones. But man, this was a lot of fun, Liam. Thank you for your insight and your opinions, and thanks for coming out to Austin to visit.
Yeah, man, it was great to meet you guys.
Absolutely. And I can't wait for our next episode. We're gonna see what happens. We're coming up on the holiday season pretty quickly here, so we might.
It's gonna be Halloween soon.
Yeah. We might get to see some spooky stuff, some Christmassy stuff. Who knows? The sky's the limit with this podcast. Right. So thank you so much for listening. We are part of the RetroLogic Network. Check out the website at retrologic.games for social links, merch, community, and more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.